It's a long time ago.
It's a long time ago.
Can you believe it?
That's a lot of bourbons ago.
That's when Elijah Craig dropped its age statement.
Yeah. That's when I first started earning my money.
We got to talk about that.
Then they did away with the
deflect.
Heaven Hill 6-year bottle and bond. I had to weather that storm too.
We'll save that for the podcast. Yeah, that's funny.
Where I came up with my best lines.
Only comedian can think on the spot like that. That's what you got to have, man. Hey everybody, welcome back. It's another brand new episode, a fun one that we're going to have here at Bourbon Pursuit. I'm Kenny Coleman.
Ryan Cecil here.
And we're going to be talking to a four-peater.
Four-peat.
We're bringing on guests of bourbon lore past and Bourbon Pursuit history lore past here. And this has been one of the guests that it's a standout, always a fun time, brings the jokes. He brings a lot of character,
sometimes
charisma.
a guitar.
Yeah, no guitar today, but I do remember one of the first episodes when we talked about the idea of unicorns, and we said the best unicorns come in plastic bottles, and sure enough, that's what he brought for us today.
Good. And I remember I was like, I gotta get some good plastic bottles. Although two are glass, but they looked like they could be plastic.
Yeah, we're not going to hold that one against you. It seems like Heaven Hill got a little more
It's
budget.
a sample bottle.
Yeah, they got rid of the pet and they're up to glass nowadays.
It's those plastic laws,
It is. Well, I mean, you've heard his voice. You've had him on the. We've heard him on the show before. Bernie Lubbers, now Ambassador Emeritus at Heaven Hill. Bernie, welcome back to the show.
It's great to be here. Good to see you guys.
Yeah, man.
It's been too long. I know. It's 4P, but it seems like it's been forever since we've
Gosh,
caught
I
up.
know. Well, so much has happened. I mean, and everything's. Well, geez, it's like time. Time's the most expensive ingredient in bourbon, and
Time
is the
evaporates
most
in this
expensive
business,
ingredient
doesn't it?
in ourselves, right? So
Yeah.
and sometimes it just goes by so quick.
Yeah. Well, just for anybody that has no idea who you are, I'm not going to even let you do a background because Bernie has been the champion of bottled and bond. He's been at Heaven Hill forever. He had a life as a stand-up comedian. He's been on the radio. He's done. He's got his own bluegrass band. What was it? What the bluegrass band is called?
The Bottled and Bond Boys.
That was
Bottled and Bond Boys.
It's like I threw a softball there for you. You can listen to his first episode, which is episode 36, and that was back in February 16th of 2016.
Wow.
We had you back on to actually really dive deep into bottle and bond. That was episode 89. And
Was that the one at my condo?
That
Burns
was
Corner.
It was.
Yeah.
They just split in two. Right?
That's no. That was the first one we split in two because we were like, oh yeah, 30-minute episodes are good, but we recorded so much with them, we split it in two. But this was the one when we had talking about bottled and bond, and after we got done recording, you ruined my life.
Oh,
Virgin bourbon.
Virgin bourbon, 15 years.
oh my! Isn't that something?
You set me on a dark path, my friend, and but thank you because now I've acquired I think 2 or 3 bottles of that in Japanese export and all that sort of stuff. And I remember the first time trying it with you, we had it there, and it was just this cherry bomb, and I was like, man, this is insane. It's so good. And I went on a mission to go find more of it, and I paid a pretty penny for it and opened up one of them. Thank God it still was that cherry bomb, that it just wasn't that one bottle you had, but that dusty old Heaven Hill, it was such good stuff.
That is, that's why it's just such a fun industry, right? And to share stuff like that you wouldn't get to share, and I working with Fred Noe at Jim Beam and Heaven Hill with Parker Beam, they always go, if you open the bottle, we're going to finish it. That's just, we're not saving this, it's just whatever. And so we all try to do that. We all try to share what we have and just, it's no fun if you just drink it yourself.
Yeah. I mean, but it's cool. It's like that is a moment in time for me that I can always look back on, that I know, especially every time I look at that bottle on my shelf. I mean, it's got about this much in it with the first one, and I'm putting about an inch on my finger here.
Kenny doesn't share with me.
Well, that's not true. Every time you come over, you do grab it. It's either that or my Michter's 20. They neither stand a chance. But I always think about our time of doing that, and it's just a connection that I can always go back and be like, yeah, this is my time of Bernie. And but now, thankfully, I've got another backup bottle sitting in the archives of it as well. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just the bad nature of when you start really getting to bourbon, you're like, well, I gotta got to buy two. It's one
Gotta
for now
back
and one
up.
for later. That's just
Absolutely.
It's what you have to have, man. Well, to kind of talk about your current role, Ambassador Emeritus, man. So, does that mean retirement's on the horizon for you?
It's a transition towards it. Yeah, because it's real interesting, and I think I hear you're two good guys to pick the brain. I was drinking out with some friends one night, and it was Denny and Jane and Bardstown stuff. I said, I think I'm the current serving American whiskey ambassador that's not a distiller or a family member. And we started thinking about it. Like, I've been doing this a long time. I started in 2005 and started thinking, most people do this job. It's very demanding on your time with traveling 2, 3, sometimes 4 weeks a month. You got a lot of stuff going on, just things happening. You don't try to do it that way, but sometimes it happens. And when you're going out of town, you're going like Monday or Sunday night to Friday or Saturday, you're gone and you're working. They pick you up at 10 in the morning and they drop you off at midnight or 1, and then you get up and you do it again. And you do a lot of trainings and talks and this and you're that and you're this. And most people just
would be burnt out at that point.
Oh, you get burnt out.
People are like, oh, it's so fun, you get to just talk and drink all day.
They either get married or they get divorced, one of the two, So they have kids, and then you can't travel as much, and then that kind of stuff happens. And so, it's like an NFL career. It's like 3 to 5 years as an ambassador, usually. And it's demanding. I've always said, I want to do this job. I don't want to do anything else. When you work in corporate America, you sometimes have to tell your HR department and that, what do you want to do 5 years from now? And I kept saying, well, I want to do this.
Don't.
They go, you can't say that. You can't say that.
I don't want a promotion. I don't want a demotion. I don't want to do anything else.
I want to do this just because I saw merit in, the distillers and everybody that, they didn't get promotions. They might, behind the scenes, they probably do that you don't see. They might be in charge of more things, but they're the master distiller, right? And so I just want to be the ambassador. That's what I want to be. So I have set my goal of mediocrity, and I've succeeded, right? So I've been able just to do this, and now it's really cool because I have these eyes. I'd have to, when you have to come in, you got to learn it all. And I've already got these eyes, right? So I've got this, this experience of how to be an ambassador, what to do, and, how do you talk? Of course, I was a stand-up comic before, so, whether you're talking to 2 people or 200 or 2,000 people, I had that down. But still, you got to have the material, you got to know what you're talking about, you got to have the confidence, you got to know stuff. And the best thing is, what I don't know, I don't have to, because there's people in this phone that know, right? So I can do a quick text off to
or somebody
Connor
in the audience
or somebody
that thinks
knows.
they know.
Yeah, and boom, I can get the answer right away. Because I'm here with somebody right now, So it's really cool. It's been such a fun ride, and Heaven Hill's been so great. And I said, I really need to take some Bernie time, and I really, I need to step back. I'm at retirement age, but I'm not ready to quit. And you just figure. You go to any company, it's a company. We're family owned, but it's still a big company. And I was like, well, that's just going to be it, whatever. And then they came back, so we don't really want you to go. We want you to slowly go if you want to, but we always want you to be a part of the brands and part of the people.
Fade off into the distance. Not a quick cutoff here.
We need you to train the next person.
Yeah. So they offered me, and I said, would you want to be Ambassador Emeritus? I was like, well, that kind of sounds old, but
sounds
then
fancy.
Connor said, no, it's sage and wise. There you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, how awesome is that? I mean, Parker Beam was a master distiller emeritus, so maybe, so I'm Ambassador Emeritus. So I will be involved with Heaven Hill and will be at events and things like that, just not so much the day-to-day, the 12, 14 hours a day kind of thing, and they've been so gracious. And so, I mean, what else could you want in life? Is be able to have more time for yourself, but still do what you love to do and with the brands you love to promote. So
yeah, you've been through it all. It's like we were kidding before. It's like I remember our first interview was like right when Elijah Craig dropped the age statement. You had to, get through that battle. Then
Tap dance around it. Yeah.
Heaven Hill, discontinue the bottle. Talk about all those.
Oh yeah,
all the most memorable moments you've had over the last.
And those kind of things, happen at every company. And you all are finding out, even when you do bottle changes or label changes, if you change anything, everybody thinks you've changed everything, right?
Yep.
So even if the liquid's still the same, the whiskey is still the same, they're not convinced. And then their brain's going to tell them, oh, it tastes different and all that kind of stuff. But when you do say, make tough decisions like taking an age statement off of something, or we've put age statements on things like Bernheim. We certainly don't get the press for putting age statements on things that we do when we take off things, but if you're going to grow a brand, and this is the business part of the bourbon business, as you all are experiencing, you got to make tough decisions. So if you keep a 12-year age statement on any product, you didn't make 12-year, you didn't factor in 10% growth or 5% growth 13 years ago. So that brand's never going to grow. So there's reality number one. Reality number two is if you're not going to grow it, and it's being more sought after, and that age statement is worth that, you're going to have to charge more for it. So, and we've seen that happen with our competitors with different things. So we thought we'd have our whiskey and drink it too. So we took the age statement off the small batch and kept it on the barrel proof, which really was just happening because the 18 went dark, remember?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really just don't stop thinking about Elijah Craig, really, So we're going to do this. And then that became so popular, like, hey, we can have our whiskey and drink it too. So the age statements are on the barrel proof, not on the small batch, but we were able to keep the price on the small batch about the same. And now we've grown that brand to it's the second largest selling small batch in the world.
Yeah.
So I think it was the right decision.
Well, before we get in, what you bring with us here?
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Oh yeah. So let's start. So the first one's talking about something we put an age statement on. Bernheim. This is barrel proof. So this is
Oh, nice.
I'm a big fan of the Bernheim barrel proof, man.
So I thought
They're
we'd
fun
start
as
with
they come
that,
out.
even though it's the barrel proof.
It's all right.
It's after lunch.
We'll go in hot here.
Connor brought down the proof down stuff before lunch.
There you
We'll
go.
get the barrel proof after lunch.
Well, so, we kind of mentioned before we started recording here too that now that you have, I believe you successfully considered you've proven out the model of what a brand ambassador does to Heaven Hill, and they said, well, you're not going to be the only person now. So what's it been like trying to lead a team of people to come in and help sort of fulfill your roles and fill those shoes?
Yeah, well, so we had internally, we hired Jack Choate, who's our West Coast whiskey ambassador and has been since 2018 on my team. And then we had another internal ambassador for the East Coast, but he left for another opportunity. And we've got a friend of ours, I know a friend of yours too, Adam Edwards, who joined the team a few months ago. He's been amazing.
Adam's great.
What great energy. Already has the great knowledge. Everybody, he's like, one of those people like John Candy or people like that where you talk to him for 3 minutes and you think you've known him for 3 years, right?
Absolutely.
It's just easy to talk to, knows this stuff, eager to learn, passionate to learn more about everything and just fun. And now you've got, and this is a really cool thing about Heaven Hill being family owned. I don't want to sound sappy or anything, but it's just amazing to watch. Is a lot of people are reacting differently to the business that's happening right now. And we're having really good business, but there's still some challenges out there with, some uncertain things beyond our control. But we just hired a whiskey ambassador in Mexico City. Ricardo is joining the team.
Very
See,
cool.
you had mentioned before that you hired somebody in Mexico City, and I was just assuming that it was going to be to promote Lunazol and the other sort of
Quilocho.
mezcal brands and stuff like that. Yeah, I had no idea.
And Grant, we just hired in Australia. So, and you think about it, we're thinking being family owned, you think long term. So these things are going to play out, and these tariffs and these other things are going to go and come and whatever. But we're going to have to grow the business. We're small internationally. So whether we're going to, if we don't do it now, we're just putting ourselves behind. So we're just doing it now because that's the right move. And we can because we don't have those stockholders in Wall Street breathing down our neck going, why'd you hire somebody in Mexico City? Because we wanted to and we have to. Right? And he was awesome. I mean, so the team we've created together, it was just me from 2012 to 2018. Traveling the whole country.
So when they start whining, you're like, I don't want to hear it.
and I
You only got one territory.
Get back out there. Go get those Delta points.
When I hired Adam, I'm like, and I told person who's going to be now in charge of it since I'm emeritus, right? That I said it's too big of a territory. New York to Florida, it's just too much. You got North Carolina in there, which is a huge, big whiskey state. You got Georgia, Florida alone, and New York, two of the largest markets out of four. They're there. And I went, well, wait a minute. I did the whole damn country for 6 years. Suck it up and do it, right?
Yeah.
But it is. We're going to need more people.
Yeah.
So if we're going to grow, and we can only worry about what we can do. And I just think it's so cool that that's how Max and Kate now and the family look at it. And the executive leadership team goes, yeah, we're going to need this.
What's the strategy? Obviously you've helped grown the brands in the U.S. domestically. How does it differ going into international markets where it's like a total blank slate? Like you're starting people, what little bourbon exposure to have or just a handful. And so talk about, I guess, the intensity or the strategy about having to go international and educate folks, because it seems like it'd be like a real hard, heavy lift.
Oh, it's so much fun, though, because that's where I learned some of my best selling points for our brands domestically. So I remember the first time I went on an international trip, I was in Germany. And, of course, we show up and we're like, we're Evan Williams, number 2 selling bourbon in the world. Right?
They're like, not this part of the world.
I mean, 95% of our sales is the United States, right? So they don't really know Evan Williams, or didn't back then. It's been better now since, this is like 2013 when I first went over there. So, and of course, we didn't have the most direct routes to market as our main competitors because they had bottling facilities over, and it's just cheaper to do things. And if you have to just physically ship everything, it's more expensive. So our brands cost more than our main competitors. And that's when I first came up with the line, wait a minute. Well, damn it should be more because we're aged longer and we're in the bottle stronger. And that's where I first came up with Heaven Hill's house style of longer, stronger.
Man alive.
Look at
These
you.
one-liners. That's the reason why you can't leave, Bernie, is because you got all the damn one-liners.
Right. So, and it's true, we're not just an 80 proof product, we're 86 proof. When I first started in the business, people lowered their proofs, and nobody noticed and nobody cared. I totally remember those times. I was working it, in 2005, 2006, they took proofs down on stuff. When I found out you can't do that anymore because people are watching, it was when makers took theirs down, right? Mm-hmm. And the whole world imploded. And I look at that and I go, that's the internet. That's whiskey societies. That's people weren't looking at applications and the TTB for labels, but about then they were.
They weren't creating Instagram accounts, posting them daily.
Yeah. So, so that just became a thing. So I was like, well, wait a minute, we're not just at 80 proof, we're 86 proof. We're not just 4 years old, we're 5 years old, And then I started looking across the board. Well, Elijah Craig's, it's 8 to 12 years old. It's 94 proof. We have an Elijah Craig 18. We have, all these brands that are aged a little bit longer or a lot longer than our competitors, which are amazing brands and amazing competitors. Does that make us better? No. Does it make it different? Absolutely, it does.
I mean, I'll say it's a little bit better. Sure. Yeah. I'll take that one out of your mouth.
So that's, internationally taught me more how to sell our brands and present it more importantly to our distributor partners, because as you all know, we can't do anything without them. I mean, we can't physically call on every account, but they do.
They kind of hold the keys of the castle in a degree. And yeah, you've got to go and teach them. You kind of have to teach them how to sell and how to talk about your product and everything like that too. So
give them an elevator.
Yeah.
It's longer, stronger, baby.
Yeah.
This Bernheim's really amazing. And I think Connor was saying you're on part of like the tasting board or innovation board where you talk about why you all went with the barrel proof Bernheim, like you said, put an age statement on, talk about kind of how that process works internally with you all at Heaven Hill.
Yeah, well, that's several different department heads and that looking together. Of course, you got to look at your barrel inventory first and see what you have.
Can we sustain this?
Yeah, and do we need to look at putting on or adjusting age statements in that? And then it goes through the sensory team, Tawny Godey and Chris Briney and that team.
Oh, Briney's still there?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And so it's awesome. And all that experience that they have, Tawny's 34 years now and Chris too, and a long time. I mean, and then once we get that, we know it's good whiskey. Now we're just going to look at maybe what proofs to bring it out, or sometimes we're just checking in if it's going to be a Parker's or a Heaven Hill Heritage. Is it on the right track? Will this be? Because to put those names on those labels, it has to be something else. Right?
It's an interesting point. What is because Heaven Hill, Heritage, and Parker are such like elite labels. How do you determine, all right, this is a Parker's, this is a Heaven Hill, like fits that, I guess, that mold or whatever?
Well, everything now we didn't used to, but everything now, like even with visitor only releases like a William Heavenhill, they have now certain criteria. So it has to have a certain number of barrels. And so like William Heavenhill is going to be a lower. I'm not going to go into exact numbers of things.
Yeah.
But if we don't have
you can
enough,
spill the secrets. You're on the way out. Bernie. Come on, just go ahead. Loose lips. Let's hear it.
He doesn't want to get the boot out there.
yeah, have another barrel proof sample. So, if you only have a few dozen barrels of something, it's not going to get even to the state of Kentucky all throughout the stores. So that's going to become more of a visitor center release, and then William Heavenhill, of course, is going to be straight whiskey. It's not going to be a finish. It's not going to be that kind of stuff. Parker's is more experimental, has been through the years. But the Heavenhill heritage so far, all straight whiskeys.
Can you bring back the blend of mash bills from Parker's? That was one of my favorites.
Those were great.
Yeah.
And there's still a lot of Parker's resting that Parker was involved with. So that's the cool thing about the whiskey business is here he passed in 2017 and he has a lot of projects with his name on it and his thumbprint still on it. Right. So, and that's the cool. That's right. And Parker, I think knew that, he knew he was making whiskey that he wouldn't be here for.
Yeah.
I think the coolest thing is like, you brought this brand that's an obscure corn whiskey and created a cult following behind it. Talk about that.
It's literally the back of his phone.
I know.
Right now
that's why I saw it. And I was like,
mellow corn.
Mellow corn. And
that is the national marketing budget for mellow corn. Right?
Yeah. Talk about how you did that. Because it's people, they are like diehards about it.
Well, it is something that I've adopted and as a thing that I've learned as being one of the first bourbon ambassadors that wasn't a family member or a distiller, which I was one of. When I was at Jim Beam, Fred No's title was bourbon ambassador. Right? And yes, he could distill, but he was more valuable on the road as the ambassador, as the face of the brands and a family member. And I was like, that's when I first said, I'm not a family member. I'm not,
the hell am I going to do?
I'm not Parker Beam. I'm not Fred No. I'm not Jimmy Russell. What the hell am I going to do? And that's when I said, you know what? I'm going to be the bottle and bond guy. Okay? And I'm going to bring that back. That's going to be my thing. I'm going to be the Johnny Appleseed of bottle and bond. I got the bottle and bond tattoo.
Still loud and proud right there.
15 years ago, I got that. And I'm just going all in on the bottle and bond because it was my first favorite bourbon that I tasted. It wasn't my mom's bourbon or my dad's bourbon. It was my bourbon, right? Old Granddad was that bottle. And I would go in and Fred would sign Knob Creek bottles and I'd sign old Granddad bottles. He goes, Bernie signed Old Granddad. Isn't that funny?
Let Bernie take.
But I'm like, that's how you do it, Fred. It's got to be something. It's got to make me feel like I got ownership in something. And then when I came over to Heavenhill and we had all these bottle and bonds, like, man, I can really kick this up, And so one of the things I found out is not only what are you going to be famous for. That's one of the things I think you got to ask yourself if you're going to be successful in anything. And I decided that bottle and bond was going to be my thing that I was going to be famous for. And of course, it took 15 years to do, and most people don't do this job that long, so it goes on. So I was able to fulfill it. Fred Minnick says I am, right? Says I'm the guy you all credit me to.
You are definitely the guy that championed it. There's
I'm not the only one, and I'll take the accolades. It takes everybody, and it takes microphones like this, and it takes, Tales of the Cocktail and Camp Run Amok and doing that, sharing your passion with people and consumers every day. But then I think as an ambassador, you gotta have an underdog. You gotta have. When I was at Beam, it was Old Granddad. When I'm at Heavenhill, it's mellow corn.
Yeah, because when you're talking to people and you're pitching Elijah Craig and probably some of these other small batch as very eloquent and
premium.
High premium. Thank you. That's the word I'm looking for. And it's like, and then we have these other bottled and bonds that are $14, but you make it feel premium.
Oh, absolutely. When I talk about bottle and bond, well, first of all, let's talk about mellow corn. If it wasn't for aged corn whiskey, we wouldn't have bourbon today.
Keep going.
When was the first law that you had to use a brand new charred barrel?
That would be the ratification of the when Taft signed it into law. Was Taft did
not in the Taft decision.
No, that was bottled and bond.
That was straight whiskey.
Yeah, so it was when
1936.
36.
Yeah.
So 36. So think about this. Was everybody using a brand new barrel before?
Man, see, you know what? That's why I hate. I remember why I hated having him on because he tests us and makes us feel like an idiot.
It's like we don't want to answer, Bert. Don't just
we're the ones asking the questions, Bernie. Right? No, okay.
Just ask rhetorical
I'm emeritus. Come on.
Get in shape, guys.
So if there's not a law to compel you to have to do it, are you going to do it?
No, absolutely.
You know, and we've all tasted bourbons from Prohibition and pre-Prohibition. It looks like they probably used a brand new barrel, right? But it must have been their thing that they did, and I don't know if everybody did it, right? So, unless you're anything before 1936 was some form of aged corn whiskey, if you really think about it.
Yep.
Right? And it was aged corn whiskey that pointed us. It was the catfish that crawled out of the lake onto the ground and pointed us the way that the barrel was going to give flavor and color, right? Because they were just shipping it, right? I mean, there's stories. It was at least 4 stories how it came to be.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much it.
There's a burn barn somewhere in this.
Right. There's a barn. There's hanging it over fires. There's burning it out because there's pickling agents in it. However it happened, it happened. So we were aging corn whiskey in used barrels since the early 1800s. So my point is anything we've drank from there till 1940 has been some form of corn whiskey. There would not be bourbon today if it wasn't for aged corn whiskey. So we need to give corn whiskey its due. And I hate when people, hate's a strong word. I don't like it when people taste mellow corn and they go, I don't like this bourbon. I'm like, good, because it's not bourbon. You know, and appreciate it for what it is. You know, it's those subtle notes of vanilla, honey, and caramel. I don't really taste much spice in it. Well, it's not a brand new barrel. It's not magnifying those flavors. Still taste the corn flavor. That's the magic. That's why it has to be aged in a brand new uncharred barrel or a used barrel, because that's the science. There's the science that happens in it. So I love it. And it's bottle and bond. My line that I've been using now came up with to get people's attention about bottle and bond, whether it's $14.99 or $499, is bottle and bond is the most restricted spirits on planet Earth. Boom.
Boom. Yeah. Mic drop.
Yeah, we don't need to. Don't test us on this.
But you know,
we'll
there's
try
laws, there's laws on tequila, there's laws on mezcal, there's laws on Armagnacs and cognacs, but nothing close, because you got to pass all the laws to be a bourbon or a rye or a corn or a wheat whiskey. That's a lot of laws.
And then you got to take another.
And then you got a whole nother litany, right? You know, same distilling season, same distiller, pure water only to exactly 100 proof. That you got to not just 2 years, it's 4 years that you got to age, and you got to put the real name of the distillery, and you got to put the DSP on. It's the most restricted spirits on planet Earth. Wow. And if it's the most restricted, now they suddenly become the rarest spirits on planet Earth.
Love it.
Love it.
Now, the fact that you can get them every day doesn't make it not rare. Because think about this. When I started in 2005, there was 10 distilleries in Kentucky owned by 6 companies. That's it. And there were 4 distilleries outside of Kentucky. 3 of them weren't even bourbon, but we got to count them. So that's why we call ourselves legacy distilleries or heritage distilleries, those 6 companies. Those 10 distilleries owned by 6 companies were legacies or heritage. I've heard them. I like the word legacy. Then you got Jack, George, Dickel, and MGP, and Smith Bowman. That was it. Now, there's over 100 in Kentucky. I think one's being built right now. It could be 101 or something
Yeah, I was
like
going
that.
to say, it was like there's almost
2,000,
over
2,500.
There's over
2,600 outside.
Yeah.
So if everybody makes 4 labels, you all make more than 4 labels, right?
No, we had to. Yeah.
Right.
We actually came out with our first bottle of Bond.
Yeah, they're awesome.
See, there we go.
Yeah. So if that's the case, and we'll just conservatively say that there's about 10,000 labels on the American landscape today, there's only around 100 bottle and bonds. And in any given state, less than 25. They're not only the most restricted spirits on planet Earth, they're the rarest spirits on planet Earth.
I love it, man. And so you've been talked about bottled and bond for a very long time.
Speaking of bottle and bond,
let's drink some William Heaven Hill 11th edition bottled and bond. 13
there's
years.
just enough
proof.
in there for you all probably. So don't worry. I've had some.
Oh, don't you worry about it.
Get on the way over.
Yeah. So you've championed bottled and bond for a very long time. Has
There's a little
your
left? Look at y'all.
we're all about sharing.
I was saying, sharing's caring.
When you travel, or I guess now that you're winding down, do you still talk and champion bottled and bond as much as you did? When you said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this and make it my own.
Absolutely, especially now with the old Fit 7 coming out.
Yeah.
And cheers, guys.
Cheers,
Cheers. Cheers. As Connor would say, slosha.
Oh, it's good.
This is the William Heaven Hill 13-year-old. Oh my
That's
gosh.
nice.
Isn't that great?
It's got
So,
Kenny Sweet Oak on the finish.
my favorite tasting.
It's fantastic. Oh man.
Oh, yeah.
That's almond joy all day.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a good call.
Yeah.
Oh, I've never had. Oh, okay. I guess now you sent me another rabbit hole. I gotta go find this bottle. Man, it started with virgin bourbon. Now
She gone.
Nah,
Put that in your pocket
there
there.
we go.
You got the
I'm
back one.
gonna savor that little bit, and I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna put this on a try to buy page here and be like, who can find me this real quick? Love it.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
All right. Anyway,
Another cool thing about what Mike Heaven Hills allowed me to do, and it also comes back to the family-owned part too, is they've let me be me and do what I want to do, and use the creativity that I enjoy doing and lending to it.
no guardrails.
And there's guardrails, but I just look at things different. So I always thought tastings were boring. Somebody stands up and talks, and some people are better presenters and talkers than others, and it can be captivating. It can, but just talking about grain bills and ages and proofs, and then I taste pencil shavings and marzipan, which I remember, I don't even know what marzipan is. This guy's tasting it, and then I learned from the old school people. I learned from Parker Beam. I learned from Fred. I learned from Jimmy and Eddie and them. And they don't talk in those terms. Parker always just said, I taste good bourbon. He didn't say, I got green apple in there. He's like, I didn't put that in there, and all that stuff. That was, we've heard all those lines. And it's kind of true. And then I started thinking about it. It's because it's your experience. Like, you went to a different high school or grade school than I did, had different school lunches. My mom made different meals. My dad, barbecued differently. Grandparents' holiday meals are different. So we all have different experiences.
So we all had square cut pizza.
That's right.
We all had that. You're not getting away from that.
So tastings, I thought, should always be elevated. And that's what I've loved to do. So I had a tasting when I first started. And I was like, gosh, at Heaven Hill, we can tell the story of how bourbon became bourbon from unaged corn whiskey with Georgia Moon. And then that first evolution of what it was going to become 200 years later as bourbon as mellow corn, that same corn whiskey aged in a used barrel.
Forgot about Georgia Moon.
Yeah.
Big 1 year old skews.
Right. And it's true corn whiskey. It's not just neutral grain spirits down to 80 proof. It's 140 proof, 80% corn. Comes in, and just it says aged less than 30 days, but it's not aged for 30 seconds, right? So
I don't think I've ever seen this before.
Oh, you haven't?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's in like a
it's in a
moonshine
jar.
bottle, the brown label. Yep. Black text.
I call it Blanco whiskey.
I like
It's
it.
just it's like Blanco tequila. It's just unaged, right? They love Blanco tequila so much. Why would you like Blanco whiskey? So it's not the fact that when I'm using this tasting and I want that buyer or that to carry Georgia Moon. Georgia Moon does fine. This is who else can tell you this is the genesis? This is what Basil Hayden was making in the late 1700s. This is what Evan Williams was making in 1783. It's what Elijah Craig was making. They weren't making bourbon. They were making unaged corn whiskey. So why not taste it? We're going to pretend they made bourbon? No, they didn't. So then they started shipping it out and used these barrels, and they would either burn them out or your barn burned down or however it happened. It was the mellow corn. So that's the first evolution. Then we taste Bernheim or Larceny or Old Fitzgerald and bring to life the story of wheat, right? And tell the story. I've never heard the story. I came to this conclusion of how wheat bourbons came to be, because as rare as bottle and bonds are, so are wheat bourbons. The three of us can probably only name 15. They're out of the 10,000.
There's about to be a lot more.
Right. But, and that's one reason why I asked Max, why do you make Bernheim or mellow corn? And he's like, well, our competitors aren't, because they have their board of directors and their stockholders going to say, why you making mellow corn that doesn't sell that much? But he's like, how many rye whiskeys were there 15 years ago? How many are there now?
No, a handful, and then now we at least have a dozen. So
what if wheat whiskey's the next rye whiskey? What if corn whiskey's the next one? We've got a 4-year head start on a lot of our competitors, and that's what makes a cool family-owned business, right? Because we're doing the things they're not going to do or can't do by the stress of their business model. So cool. So I talk about it and say, hey, the last harvest of corn in Kentucky is Halloween, end of October. Right? And we have early corn and late corn, right?
I had no idea.
Yeah. So when I was making this argument, I paid attention. That's one reason.
There you go. You got to make sure you have your back straight.
When I'm driving down to Bourbon, I'm like, when's the last one, right?
Finger in the air. It's September. We're past it. All right.
Now I can ask Bernard Peterson, right, from the Grain to Glass.
Yeah.
But it's the end of October. So if you're in the 1800s or wherever, and you're making whiskey, well, certainly you're starting to run out of corn come February, March, April, May, June, July, out to the first harvest of early corn. What are you going to use for starch? What are you going to use? You're going to use the winter grain of wheat and supplement that corn with it. That's my thing. That's what I say. That's what
Makes
I said.
sense.
Well, I don't agree with that. He says, I don't agree. So we'll write your own damn book, and then you can come with your own conclusion. Right?
I mean, it's like apples. For some reason, they're never out of season. They last forever. So maybe they're just harvesting corn and put it somewhere else. But that is.
And I'm like, I might be wrong.
It probably
come up with something. Right?
It is interesting why
theory probably stands.
why they started mixing corn, rye, and barley or corn, wheat, whatever. That it is. What is the genesis of that? But they're just pure speculation.
Availability has to be some of it, right? So that tell the story of that and that next evolution. Then bottle and bond and how that's a watershed moment and how that really put a stamp on bourbon and spirits. And then when Prohibition comes and the only thing you get was bottle and bond through a doctor's prescription, and tell all those stories. And then afterwards we overproduced, and Max Shapiro says we almost went to the great liquor store in the sky. It was in the 80s and 90s, the small batch and single barrel bourbons. So we taste Elijah Craig, right? So we taste all this and tell all those stories. And that's what I started doing was we just didn't do tastings. We did tastings and brought the history alive and matched it with the whiskeys, right? And then the bottle and bonds is a whole nother tasting with just the bottle and bond story. But that's my favorite tasting of all time is a bottle and bond tasting because I call it the apples to apples and apples to oranges tasting. Because we taste mellow corn, Evan Williams bottle and bond, and Rittenhouse rye. They're all 4 years old and 100 proof. It would be hard to say, hey, taste this 3-year-old rye whiskey against this 3-year-old 80 proof rye whiskey against this 4-year-old 100 proof rye whiskey. That's not fair. It's not a fair comparison. But if they're all 4 years old and all 100 proof, that's a pretty good comparison. So those 3 whiskeys, not only just tasting those 3 back to back, now in your own words and your own experience, you can now tell your friends and family the difference between corn whiskey, bourbon whiskey, and rye whiskey where 5 minutes ago you couldn't. And that's apples to oranges because they're 3 different recipes, right? Now we're going to taste apples to apples. And we're going to go back and taste the Evan Williams bottle and bond with Heaven Hill bottle and bond 7-year-old and Henry McKenna 10-year-old and see what 3 more additional years does this the same exact whiskey at 100 proof, but different ages. Mind-blowing tasting.
Oh, I agree. We just proved it right here with 13 years.
That was mind-blowing.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ryan.
No,
I was going to talk about bottled and bond a little bit more.
Well, I was going to say, you start doing these tastings what you said around 2007-ish or maybe earlier. But anyways, how have you seen like consumer palates and trends, evolve, throughout the last, 20 years?
Yeah, well, I started doing tastings right away.
The education's been better. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So 2005, even though I was in a different role for a year and a half, I was still conducting tastings and in that, not to the degree, but if they just would send a script down and you do the script, and I'm like, well, it's talking about, this was it when I was at Beam, and I was like, I watched Fred do a tasting. I'm like, he's talking about his dad and his granddaddy and his Uncle Jerry and all that kind of stuff. And there's people are like, captivated, and they want me to tell like what temperature we set the fermenter at, you know. And I'm like, I just assumed we made it well, you know. It's like, you know, let's, you know, get out. So I started doing kind of my own tastings, and that's why I got chosen to be one of the ambassadors. And when for Knob Creek and the Small Batch, when in 2006, when they started seeing just a little uptick in those kind of theirs. And so I was doing those tastings. Back then, people didn't want older or stronger. Booker's was a hard sell, and until, gosh, you know, not that long ago.
I mean, up until 5 years ago, it's not even, you can't even find it on the shelves anymore.
And the guy who followed me in my role at Beam, Adam Harris, I think it was him who came up with let's name the batches.
Yeah.
And that was a big deal
yeah.
for that. But before that, we couldn't give Booker's away. I mean, it was a very small brand, and it was just, remember, I mean, gosh, I mean, people would say bottle and bond, 100 proof.
That's
hot.
Ooh, you know, and they talk about Wild Turkey, 101, oh my God. And then you had like Fighting Cock, 103. Baker's was 107, and just blowing people's minds. And it was like, it was hard. It was hard to
really
get people to
bad
look
night
at
on
that.
Fighting Cock one time. Ended up in another city.
And even my dad, you know, who drank a quart of bourbon a day, he said, you know, when I started representing these other brands, I said, Dad, why don't you try this, you know, Knob Creek, it's 9 years old, and Elijah Craig is 12 years old. And he says, I don't trust a bourbon over 6 years old. And I was like, trust? He goes, yeah. He goes, if it's over 6 years old, trust me, that's just the shit they can't sell. And that was the consumer's mindset. So even
can we bring that back somehow?
I know.
How can we flip and reverse that again?
And now people want old and strong. Although lately I've been noticing, I don't know if you all have been noticing, I think the barrel proof thing's kind of tamping down a little bit with some consumers. I think the whiskey society people and the people who are really, really into it, really want it. But I see a trend where some people are stepping away. What do you all see on your travels?
Yeah, definitely with like whiskey nerds, whiskey geeks, you know, which is us. You see still that barrel proof, but
you can't get away from it.
You can't get away from it. But even myself, I find like barrel proofs just, unless it's something like that. I mean, that both of these were outstanding, but most of the time I find myself in 100, 110, and I see my friends really like that 94 to 100 proof kind of. That's their wheelhouse.
Yeah, I see that too. But the unfortunate part is like with barrel proof, it's a Pandora's box moment, right? As somebody starts getting their first taste of barrel proof, you know, they graduate to it, but they get that taste of it, and it's like, then they're done for 2 years. They don't touch anything unless it's
Virgin
proof.
Bourbon 15 all over it.
It truly is. It's like they have this aura to them, and it's like that's all they drink for a couple of years. But to be fair, it's like I went through that phase. I did the same exact thing where it's just like, give me cash drink. That's all I want, because I want to drink it pure in its purest form, right out of the barrel. But now I find myself going, well, I'm 42 years old. I can't drink like I used to, and I want to enjoy myself more than maybe 2 pours in a night. You know, let's go ahead and space this out just a little bit. And I find myself finding more stuff that's balanced rather than just trying to hit, you know, a big bold red Cabernet as like a kind of a equivalent, you could say.
Yeah, we used to call them pajama bourbons. You know, more than one, you better be in your pajamas.
Night.
But yeah, it's so different. I do think, you know, people, that's why, you know, you all are building your place on Main Street, and we've put so much resources at Heaven Hill, and we have 2 visitors experiences in them. And we find that as people really want to know more. And even there's people just getting into it now and just learning about all the stuff they used to be able to get, right? And they're like, you know, they'll never be back. Hey, it's, you know, right now, I don't know if everybody's noticed, there's more Henry McKenna on the shelf now. And I've had people say, well, I guess it's not selling very good now. I'm like, what would make you think that? And they're like, well, it's on the shelf. I used to never get it. I had to get in a raffle to get it. And I was like, well, you got a point. And you're not going to believe me, but I'm going to tell you why. Because 11 years ago, we did our first expansion of Bernheim Distillery. We put in 4 new fermenters. That's 123,000 gallons each. It's just now showing up as the results of that first expansion. And that's the kind of patience and investment you have to make in this business. When you see you need to change something and it's got a 10-year age statement on it, that's how long it takes. So now there's more. So that's good news. It's not going down in sales. We have more of it. We have a little more of it.
And it's weird because of the dichotomy, because when people see it on the shelf, they're like, I don't even know if I want it anymore.
Right.
It's available. I don't even though it's good, it's available.
Well, trust me, sales are good on Henry Mechanic.
Yeah, I'm sure that.
Oh, yeah. There's no problem there.
And now we've got this
I was like, what we got here?
Just hitting the shelves. This is one of those plastic sample bottles, so this is one of a kind. But with the new Old Fitz, I thought coming out, it's hitting the shelves now. This is a sample of Old Fitz, but from the decanter series. This is a sample that looks like it's about 12 years old or 13 years old. So I don't.
Let's go ahead.
This was barreled in 04 and September 04. And bottled in September 2016.
That's when you were a stand-up comedian, right? 04?
04? Yeah. That was before I was in the business.
Yeah, that's cool.
Did dealing with hecklers ever help you with your routine?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And especially now, I have to put one or two more filters. Because, you can't just, somebody who has a legitimate...
Did you see that real quick, Ryan? Did you see that proof point on there?
But this is bottle bond though. But that was the barrel proof.
That was the barrel proof. Oh,
yeah, it's kind of confusing. It might be barrel proof.
139.
Well, no, this is 139.5. Yeah, when it came out. But I think it's.
It smells like it's proof down.
Let's see. It's been so long since I've had a sample from this bottle. Let's see if it's bottled. It might be barrel proof.
No, we're at 100.
Yeah,
it's proof down.
So I thought it was.
That's perfectly proofed at 100. My gosh, it's got like a nice cherry pie flavor profile.
It is good. And so, Bernie, when we start looking back at your career, what you've done, I mean, it's safe to say that you've had a monumental stamp on the industry. I mean, you've done a.
I'm not sure if I have, but hearing people say it, and I've gotten a lot of good emails. And
hold on, let me shower you with compliments real quick.
Please do. I'm going to sit back and drink this nice sample. And
I mean, obviously, because you've done an amazing job of what it is to champion. It's just not bottled and bond, but you champion the category. You've been able to go in front of mass audiences and use your charisma and your charm and be able to just talk, but bring it with such an eloquent way that it's fun, it's entertaining, and people just gravitate towards it. And because of you, I think people gravitate towards the category. Yes, you've done a lot for Heaven Hill, but honestly, I think you've done a lot for bourbon.
Yeah,
and
the whiskey's great, but it's the people. And you're one of those people that just help connect the dots. The whiskey's the starting point, but you're that liaison between consumers and brands, and that's the very cool thing.
Thank you. It feels good, and then having that evolution of bourbon and bottle and bond tasting, I didn't think was enough, right? So again, I learned over in Europe, and you go over to Europe, and you're in Paris, and you're in London, and you're in all these places, they get all of the Scotch master blenders and distillers, and if you're not a master distiller from Kentucky, if you're not one of those, it's hard to get a master class of people to come out and hear you. Bernie Lubbers is coming from where? With what brands? Heaven Hill. Kind of heard of them, maybe. How do you get? On any given day in London or New York or Chicago or Paris, there could be dozens of tastings going on because of all the different brands. Those are the cities that people are going to hit. Right. So when I go to New York and I go to London and I go to Paris, I want them to come listening to our story in Heaven Hill and taste our stuff and listen to it. And so I started putting my live bluegrass music into it and matching songs with the whiskeys and the stories. And all of a sudden then we're at the Slaughtered Lamb in London, at two different locations of that at their live performance singing about it and we're turning people away. Because you're going to say somebody from Kentucky is going to tell, match Kentucky whiskey with Kentucky bluegrass music and tell the stories. Come listen to that, right? And so that's been really cool. No other company would have allowed that to happen without a agency involved, writing the scripts, approving things. What songs are you going to play? What are you going to talk about?
I need to see the set list.
Can you just, I mean, can you imagine
I need
a
the
New
lyrics.
York agency putting this together? And Max and Kate and Alan go, just do it. You know, it sounds pretty cool. Why don't you do it? You know, or whatever. I mean, I never had anybody question me on that kind of stuff. I mean, that just doesn't happen in a company our size in this world, in this business world we live in, right? And it's been so much fun to have that freedom to unleash creativity like that. And it had to start somewhere. It wasn't as good as it is now, but it's, you know, I've been doing it for over 10 years now, putting the music with it. And now coming up, we got 2 sessions of Camp Run Amok. It's always, highlight of the week for me and hopefully the campers. 200 bartenders around the country and the world, and have the Bottle and Bomb Boys play with me to bring those stories alive. And it's the first time they've ever heard live bluegrass music in their life, where they've seen it in person. And again, they're going to match it when we drink Mellow Corn and we do Copper Kettle. You know, get your copper kettle, get your copper coil, fill it with new made corn mash, and never will you toil. It's pretty cool.
See, and honestly, I don't think there's ever going to be another Bernie. I truly think that you've become somebody that is a once in a lifetime type of person in this industry, the very equivalent of somebody like a Freddie Johnson, right? Like you have
Fred No or Booker No.
You just have
larger than life personality.
And they're all
true,
and we're all unique, one of a kind people.
Yeah, and you bring such a fun aspect to it. You connect with everybody on a different, on pretty much the same level. Honestly, it's like you've been able to cross the chasm of being able to take somebody that might not be interested into this, but become an absolute lover of it. And that's why I know you're, emeritus for Heaven Hill, but honestly, like you've been ambassador for the bourbon industry and the bourbon community, and there's nobody that doesn't know your name. And so, as we come in and start sharing the compliments, I just want to say thank you for everything that you've done in your career. And I'm so honored to be able to call you a friend and have you on the show and be able to share your story with the world because of what you've been able to do here.
Well, thank you. And, thanks. You all made me a part of your first Bourbon Palooza, and that was awesome. And, it's fun to be able to share other people's successes and their journey too. So it's been fun. And being a four-peat, that's pretty damn
That's
cool.
something, right?
And it's really special when, we do a bottle signing somewhere and you show up and, you buy your bottle and get it, and it's you're like, oh my gosh, Bernie Lubbers just showed up. And it's like, you're the only person that showed up, but
Hey.
but it meant a lot.
I remember that. It was at Justin's House of
Justin
Bourbon.
was at Bourbon,
I learned early and learned from the best. You support your friends. Anytime that we were doing events with Fred and Jim Beam on the road, Jimmy Russell would always show up. He would sit at a table and do the tasting with us, whether we were at the Houston Rodeo or we were at a Whiskey Fest, right? And so I saw that example, and I try to do that as much as I can. I try to go to as much of my friends and colleagues' tastings and bottle signings as I possibly can, because sometimes you're standing behind that table and 4 people come in, and you're like,
I'm a loser.
This was a waste of time. And you got to make it because we've all been there, right? It's not always a line out the door, right? So it's fun, and if I tell people sometimes, and Jack Daniel's is an amazing brand. We would all love to have in our portfolios, an amazing company, amazing brands. But it almost outsells the entire bourbon category combined. So we have to work together. We have to champion each other. 2.7 million people came and visited the Kentucky last year. We need more visitor centers. We need your place to open, right? We need there to be fun experiences everywhere, because they're going to come back and they're going to come to our place too. So cheers.
Well, cheers, Bernie.
to that.
Like I said,
Cheers.
I've done all my good wishes for you, and this has just been a real honor to have you back on. As we started talking about, this is 10 years of Bourbon Pursuit, and we looked at our catalog of some of the most influential guests, and you were definitely at the very top of this. So thank you for making time to be able to come back on here. Congratulations in your new role, and potentially winding down, figuring out what's on the horizon, and more Bernie time.
I never wind down too much, and maybe the next time I'm on, I can talk about my bourbon and bluegrass deal that whatever I'm doing then,
Yeah.
who knows what the future holds for Bernie Lubbers, right?
It might be on stage at Bourbon and Beyond at that
But there will
point.
be bottle and bond involved.
There will
That's
be.
right.
There always will
Always. That's
Well,
a given.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know how to like close it out. Like, is there a way that people can follow you or
Sure.
figure out like what you got going on in your life?
Sure, I'm on Instagram, Bernie Lubbers. I'm on the Facebook as Bernie Lubbers as well, and I have my own website, which is Whiskey Prof. Like I'm known as the Whiskey Professor, so whiskeyprof.com.
And you got a book too. Because I
got a book.
So it's funny. I was at Half Price Books, and I was trying to shop some for my son, and there was your book, and I was like, I
Awesome.
grabbed it. It's
Awesome.
a great read. So
Yeah,
people should
bourbon
check that out.
whiskey, our native spirit, sour mash, and sweet adventures. It's available at
Great
our
cocktail
visitor
recipes in
centers.
there.
Some good cocktail recipes. There's also on my website and in the book a good little guide to Louisville of where to go, where to eat, drink, and enjoy Louisville when you come visit the Bourbon Trail, Lexington, Northern Kentucky, things like that. So yeah, it's pretty easy to find me. So please do look me up, message me. I message everybody back on Instagram and everywhere that I can. I mean, it's the only way it works, right? You can't just go, oh, don't do that, don't look. You know? Yeah, come on, somebody took the time to message you. You know, it's pretty damn. I've had, since the Emeritus announcement came out a couple weeks ago, so many good. You don't know what you do. You don't know the lives you touch, and I felt like George Bailey a little bit. Like, hey. Maybe I did, think about how many thousands of people, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people through the help of your all's podcast. And it just, you don't know how many people you touch and what you can do. And so it's been real fun. So I really appreciate y'all having me on and I look forward to coming back again.
Absolutely. I'm glad we played a little small part in this, and congratulations again on the success of your career and everything. Looking forward to in the future. And like I said, retirement's going to be a fun time for you. I can't wait to see what you're going to do.
We're going to have a little more Old Fitz bottle and bond.
Let's do
tasty.
that.
Yeah,
Let's do that. Let's do that. So make sure you follow Bernie. Make sure you follow Bourbon Pursuit on all the socials. We try to get back to every single message. It's actually, I take care of everything on Bourbon Pursuit. Ryan takes care of everything on Pursuit Spirit.
You might not get a response on Bourbon Pursuit, but Pursuit Spirits, you'll definitely get a response from me.
Yeah, but make sure you follow us on all those socials. And if you want to make sure that you check out the background of Bernie, all those past episodes, you can go to bourbonpursuit.com. You can literally type in the word Bernie in the search bar, and you will see all those prior episodes. You can go and listen to those. But make sure you subscribe, share with a friend, especially the Bottled and Bond episode that we did. So if you want a deep dive on what is Bottled and Bond, what does it mean, and you can see Ryan and I from yesteryears as we showed today when we struggle when he sits there and questions us, and I was like, why do we invite him back on here?
We're the ones supposed to be asking questions. We're the interviewers.
Yeah,
I'm the professor.
yeah,
that's right.
yes. But you get to go and do that. But with that, cheers, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Toodles.
Good job, Bernie.
Thank you.
This was fun, man.
That was fun.
Always fun.
This one's really good.